I believe that in the Western world, we're really not very good at acknowledging how we feel. We tend to bottle up uncomfortable emotions or avoid them. In fact, there are a number of different ways we do this. And this might be, for example, by self-soothing, using food or alcohol, drugs. We also might distract ourselves from them. And that could just be by being really busy, because by being busy, we have less time to actually be aware of how we're feeling. And this can become learned, and we're not even aware of the reason for us to be busy. But it stops us having to sit down and be still, which is a time when emotions can begin to surface. And then if they're feeling really uncomfortable and we don't know how to deal with them, then this is why this can cause problems. Another way that we deal with our uncomfortable emotions is to indulge in them. And this might be through ruminating, worrying, or overanalyzing. Now, I explain in a blog that I wrote, that I'll put a link to below here, about why this is the case, how we learn this. But often what happens is, because we've learned to repress these emotions, or we indulge in these emotions, but basically we are not dealing with these unresolved emotions, either in the present or from the past, they can manifest in symptoms. And this can be pain, this can be all sorts of other persistent symptoms or conditions that we can experience. So this emotional awareness exercise now that I'm going to take you through is about helping to improve your emotional awareness. It's basically about improving your felt sense. So in other words, this sense that you have of the sensations that are going on in your body all the time, even if you're not aware of them. This might be noticing your heart beating. It could be twitching muscles. It could be pain, tension. It could be a warmth or a burning sensation, a fullness, any sensation that is in your body. It could be that you suddenly have a twitch in your big toe, and often you're not even aware of it. But all these are sensations that are within our body. And many of these sensations are linked to an emotion that might have been triggered. But often these feel uncomfortable, especially if these are emotions that we've grown up to learn to avoid, or that our primal brain recognizes to be dangerous. And I explain this more in the blog. Then actually we can unconsciously repress them, which in other words means that these emotions, rather than being processed, just going through its normal flow of surfacing, hanging around for a little bit and then just resolving, in order for our primal brain to keep us safe, because it perceives these uncomfortable emotions to be dangerous, then often other symptoms like pain, tension, burning, things like that, tinnitus, jaw tension, whatever it might be, they can manifest because the emotion has been unable to just pass through and go through its normal cycle. Now, according to Jill Bolt, who's a brain scientist, these emotions, or an emotion, will hang around for about 90 seconds. That's all. So it's like a wave. It will come up, hang around a bit, and then settle down. But it's only literally up to about 90 seconds. And yet they can make us feel so uncomfortable that our primal brain unconsciously, automatically will stop us from feeling that, and symptoms manifest. But that means that when there are symptoms there, well, let's say chronic pain at the moment, when you have persistent pain, all it is a sensation. It's not there trying to make your life a misery. It's literally there as a signal that there's something that needs dealing with, that you're not feeling safe. So by learning to feel these sensations and allow the emotions to pass through, we're actually reducing the fuel for these symptoms. Now, what's really important with this exercise is that we allow these emotions to be there. And remember, this is a sense, just like sight and sound and taste, and it can take time to develop. Now, for example, if somebody goes blind, it's known that often their hearing will become more acute. They need their hearing more. It becomes much more acute, but that can take time. If you want to learn Braille, then you don't just put your fingers on the Braille paper and you know what you're interpreting. You don't feel it straight away. It takes time until then the sensation in your fingers and the interpretation required in the brain actually then begins to help you understand. And this is the same as the felt sense. It's about actually just sitting and relaxing, letting go, being silent and observing. I often think it's like sitting in front of a fish tank and somebody's told you that there's a clownfish. And if you relax back, then you can just observe. And if the clownfish comes out, you notice it. You're not trying to change it or do anything with it, but you're aware of it and it goes back behind something and then you notice it again, but you're not interacting with it. You're not trying to change anything. So this is different from looking for a symptom. So looking for a sensation, for example, because looking is like, leaning forward against the fish tank and looking for that clownfish, that it takes a lot more energy and activity. And you're trying, and this is about actually allowing, sitting back in your chair or lying down, observing, surrendering to whatever is, and just with curiosity and interest, observing. Because by doing that, if an emotion does begin to surface and you don't react to it, you're actually reinforcing to your primal brain that you're safe. Now, generally, the symptoms that are being produced, like chronic pain and other symptoms, are part of the fight or flight response, our protective fight or flight response by the primal brain. It's learned that it's danger, that there's a threat, that you're not safe. So the more you can practice this, and every time you practice this and you notice a sensation coming up and you just relax and observe, you're reassuring your primal brain, it's okay, we're safe, everything's fine. Until gradually over time, you reduce the reactivity of your primal brain and you're self-soothing and allowing the relaxation response. So over time, you're retraining your brain to recognize that these sensations are safe. It's okay. You don't need to react to them. So in essence, you begin to remove the fuel for your symptoms. And in the meantime, you're retraining your brain to recognize actually these sensations are safe. It doesn't mean that there's a threat to you, to your life. In essence, what we're doing is we're being mindful in the moment to whatever sensation is going on, whatever is happening in our body, without reacting to it and without judging it. So this is basically just like a mindfulness exercise. And I remember a while back sitting in the woods on a tree trunk, and it was early in the morning, but the sun was shining, and I just sat there. And I remember just observing, just sitting quietly and enjoying the peace and quiet. And I know I was aware of the sun shining through the trees. And then my attention would go to a wood pigeon that was calling. And then I was aware of a fly buzzing around my face. And then something else caught my attention. So I was just completely relaxed and just aware and interested and noticing whatever was there without reacting. So I wasn't flicking the fly away. I wasn't looking for anything. And while I was sitting there, after I sat there, I remember on my walk back, thinking that actually this is similar to what we're doing with emotional awareness, but what we're doing with emotional awareness is we're going inwardly. So we're going in and we're actually being mindful of sensations within us. So the light streaming by might be, I don't know, a twinge in our big toe. The fly buzzing around my cheek might be pain somewhere, etc. And the whole aim is just not to be focused on that, to just rest your attention and then to be aware of whatever's there without going into it and wandering and into your head thinking about it, because this is very much about a bodily experience, just embodied, sitting quietly and noticing what's going on in your body without actually trying to think about it and work it out. So what I'm going to do is take you through an exercise at the moment, an emotional awareness exercise, to give you time to begin practicing this as well. Remembering that this can be helpful to be done a couple of times a day like this, maybe as a form of meditation. So you're just sitting maybe for 5-10 minutes or more, sitting quietly, just observing. But there are also other ways that you can build your emotional awareness as well. And this might be, for example, if you're watching television and maybe you're watching a funny film, just for a moment, pause and notice what's happening in your body when you're feeling fun, laughter. You know, when you're feeling like laughter, feeling happy. What are you aware of in your body, sensation-wise? It might be a thriller. Again, just note, maybe close your eyes so you can remove this sight sense so that you can actually focus more. And just be aware again, what does that do to your body? What are you aware of? Are you aware of any tightening, twitching anywhere? Just notice what you're aware of. Another thing you can do to practice this is to deliberately bring to mind an emotion. It might be, for example, you decide to look at a sleeping child or a pet, maybe you're stroking a cat or a dog, and as you're sitting there stroking, you allow yourself to feel that love and compassion you feel for them. Or you might bring to mind somebody that you love, or you might bring to mind somebody that you're annoyed with or angry with. And again, just bring them to mind and then come out of your head and notice in your body, in your heart, chest area, what are you aware of? What sensations are happening in your body in response to that emotion? And the reason for doing this is that the better your emotional awareness, the more you will be able to process unresolved emotions, whether that's avoided emotions in the day or repressed from the past, but also the more you will be aware of when you're being triggered, when a button's being pressed, when you're feeling a certain emotion and feeling uncomfortable, or maybe when the pain increases, to in that moment pause, breathe. So breathe slowly, calm your breathing down and feel, notice what's happening in your body. Then you can reassure yourself. And again, in the blog, I've got some self-soothing and grounding techniques in there as well. So this can be a really good opportunity because the more you are aware, the more you can nip things in the bud by dealing with the emotions so they don't end up fueling or triggering a symptom. So let's move on now to the emotional awareness exercise. Find yourself somewhere quiet where you can sit quietly. Sometimes sitting in the same place each time can be helpful because, again, it's the repetition that helps your body relax and know what's going to happen. You can sit up, you can lie down. As you practice this, you can do it anywhere and everywhere. In that moment, pause, breathe, feel, and then reassure. So when you found somewhere comfortable, what I suggest you do is just take a couple of deep breaths. Just breathe in deeply and then slowly let your air out of your lungs. Maybe just humming or ah, and just let that air out. Just a couple of times, and then just rest your attention on your chest area, around your heart chest area. You can close your eyes, or if you've had previous trauma and this is a challenge for you, you can just lower your eyes to the ground. But that actually then just removes at least one of the senses for you, so you can start focusing more on the internal sensations. So all you're doing is relaxing in silence and just resting your attention on your heart chest area. This is the area where most of the emotional stuff goes on. So just be aware of what's going on. So in a very calm, relaxed manner, just allow your attention to rest generally over your heart chest area. But you might well become aware of other things that take your attention. So allow your attention to rest on whatever you notice, without trying to change anything, without questioning what's going on. This is about just being interested, having an openness, a curiosity to what's going on. Because while you're doing this, you're reassuring yourself that you're safe. Maybe your attention will be drawn towards a certain area of pain in your body, and that's fine. But just be curious and just keep an openness and just notice rather than being involved in it. Just observe what's going on. You might notice it starting to change, or something else draws your attention. Nothing stays the same in nature anyway. Everything changes. So even if there is pain there, it will gradually change. It might morph into something else. It might move somewhere else. In fact, it could be quite helpful and reassuring for you when you feel an emotion and then either the pain reduces or you start doing emotional awareness and maybe a pain increases, because all you're doing is sitting there and yet a symptom might come on. And that's just reassurance that this is a stress-induced symptom, an emotionally induced symptom. Can't be a physical cause if you're just sitting there quietly and then suddenly a pain comes on or increases. So this can help you just reassure yourself later on when you think back to this. And if things get uncomfortable, maybe the emotion surfacing becomes really uncomfortable, then you can open your eyes. Just open your eyes, ground yourself back into the room now. You might want to make a fist with your hands a few times or move your feet up and down. You might want to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 tool, which is by opening your eyes, look at and name 5 things that you can see. Then 4 things that you can feel. That might be the chair under your bottom or the floor under your feet. Maybe 3 things that you can hear. Then name 2 things you can smell. And 1 that you can taste. Now, by that time, you should have been able to just calm yourself down, bring you back into the moment now, rather than getting involved in the emotion. And then when you're ready, go back, close your eyes or lower your eyes and go back to where you were, just focusing on your heart and lungs and just being aware of what's going on. That's called pendulation. So you're toing and froing, you're backing off if it gets too uncomfortable. And then when you feel a bit calmer, you're going back into it again. And this enables you to build the tolerance, your ability to actually feel these emotions. And as you're doing this, you're building your window of tolerance, your ability to safely feel these emotions. So remember, you can do that at any time, whether it's after 30 seconds, a minute, or 10 minutes. If you're feeling overwhelmed with an emotion coming up, then just open your eyes and ground yourself. So what you're doing is just quietly paying attention to whatever sensation decides to pop up in the body. And this might be related to a symptom that you have, but it also might be related to an emotion surfacing. And this is why it's important to stay out of your head and the dialogue about it, and actually just rest your attention on your body and notice. Now, you might be aware of feeling a certain emotion, and it can be helpful to just silently name what that emotion is, whether that's anger, fear, sadness, or anything like that. But don't get involved in a dialogue in your head trying to work out what emotion it is. Quite often there are variations and there are different types of emotion that get merged together. And it's more important to allow yourself to not resist it and just notice and feel whatever sensations are there, rather than being in your head trying to work it out, which then becomes a distraction from feeling. So each time when you've been aware, attention has been moved to a certain part of your body, as you're just observing it, you might want to at some point bring your attention back to your chest area, your heart, your throat. Often that's where the emotions tend to be felt. In fact, you might feel your throat tightening up, and that's often a sign of an emotion beginning to surface, but the body reacting and resisting that. So again, just notice the throat tightening or any tension anywhere. Be curious. But again, just observe without reacting, without resisting. And the more you're able to do this, the more you're reassuring your primal brain that you are safe, that the emotions are safe, that you are safe to feel these emotions. So all this is being calm, as relaxed as you can be, not trying to do anything. And you will have thoughts, of course you will. But again, it's just like meditation, mindfulness. When you're aware of a thought, you just let it go and bring your attention back to your heart, chest area. Just notice what's happening there. And if nothing's happening, that's fine too. Remember, it can take time to develop a sense. And don't do this in the hope that you're going to get rid of a pain, for example, or symptom, because that in itself creates resistance for that symptom. This is about not being dependent on what the outcome will be, but actually just recognizing this is something that is good for you, good for your health and well-being, emotionally as well as physically and mentally. And over time, the more you practice, the more used to it you get, the more you become aware of sensations, the easier it becomes. And gradually over time, you are going to be able to reduce the fuel for the pain, for your symptoms, because you're actually then addressing and acknowledging the underlying causes of those symptoms. And over time, you may well begin to notice the emotion before it manifests as a symptom, which is great, because when you notice the emotion initially, by acknowledging and expressing the emotion, you have no need for that to end up manifesting as pain. So again, just keep your attention on your body, just inside really, just around your heart, chest area, a real gentle attention, really just resting it there. And when you notice something, allow your attention to go there, but with curiosity. You're not trying to work out what's happening or why it's happening or what it's to do with, because that's being in your head. And that then distracts you from the actual feelings of the emotions. So again, if an emotion comes and you know what it is, then absolutely silently say in your head what it is. But if not, it's more important to actually just acknowledge how you're feeling. So just observe. So all this is a very passive exercise of just relaxing in silence and just being alert to anything that pops up, being curious with an open mind, open heart. And when you find yourself being dragged into thoughts or something, then again, let them go. And then go back into the heart, chest area, throat area. Just be aware of what's going on there. Remember, even when emotions surface, they only last up to 90 seconds. And then they settle down, like a wave coming up, hanging around a bit, and then going off again. As long as we allow them to. And that's where this exercise can be so helpful in allowing us to let emotions surface and go through their cycle rather than stopping them by self-soothing with something like alcohol or food, or just keeping busy. So this can feel really uncomfortable for many people to just sit quietly. And that's why it's worth just doing it very carefully and gently when you start off. And remember, even if the pain increases, if you engage in it, if you react to it, the chances are it will stay the same. If you just back off, just relax, observe, you're reassuring your primal brain by not reacting to it that it's safe. Your conscious brain is reassuring your unconscious brain that, oh, no, that was a false alarm. We're safe. Everything's all right. And the more you're doing that, the more you're retraining your brain, as well as improving your emotional awareness. So you can practice this on your own. You can practice this with this. And if you want to listen to me again, just go to the part where it starts the exercise again. And then you can listen again. And when you're ready, when you finish, all you need to do is just start moving a little bit, open your eyes, take a deep breath, and just let it go. And that's another way of stimulating your relaxation response.